All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about something absolutely critical in the world of cybersecurity, the OWASP Top 10. This is basically the most wanted list for the biggest threats to our digital lives. So let's get to it. So think about it for a sec. Your bank, your social media, your food delivery app, what's the one thing they all have in common? I mean, they're part of our daily lives, right? They've got our money, our private messages, all our data. So what's the connection? Simple. They're all targets. Every single one of them. We're talking a constant 24/7 barrage of attacks from people trying to get in. And if you want to defend something, you first have to understand how it gets attacked. And that's exactly where the OWASP Top 10 comes in. Seriously, think of it like a global alarm bell for the internet. It's the combined brainpower of thousands of security pros, all pointing to the biggest, baddest dangers out there. Yeah, OWASP, that's the Open Web Application Security Project. They put this list together using actual data from tons of security breaches and tests. So this isn't some academic theoretical thing. No, it's a field guide. It's what's happening on the ground right now. Okay, so here it is, the official list. And I get it. Looking at this, it's a bunch of technical jargon, right? Broken access control, cryptographic failures. But don't sweat it. We're not just going to list them off. Instead, we're going to break it all down with a really simple idea. Let's think of every web app as a digital fortress. You see, any fortress, digital or real, really only falls in one of three ways. One, there are cracks in the walls, failures in the basic defenses. Two, there are flaws in the actual blueprint. The problems were designed right in from the start. And three, the guards are asleep in the towers. Nobody's watching for an attack. Pretty much everything on that big list fits neatly into one of those three buckets. So let's start with those cracks in the walls. This is probably the stuff you'd think of first. These are the classic ways attackers break in. They're looking for weak gates, busted locks, maybe even a secret passage that everyone forgot about. And this bucket holds some of the heavy hitters. You've got stuff like cryptographic failures. That's basically when secret data isn't scrambled up the right way. Or injection attacks, which is a fancy way of saying an attacker tricks the app into running their own nasty code. And then you have these two that, well, they sound kind of the same, but are totally different. Authentication failures and broken access control. Okay, let's clear this up because it's a super common point of confusion. Authentication, that's all about proving you are who you say you are. It's like having the key to the front door. And authentication failure, that means the front door lock is busted. But access control, that's about what you're allowed to do once you're inside. A failure there is like leaving the master key to every room in the castle just sitting on the front table for anybody to grab. And that brings us to the number one risk on the entire list. Broken access control. Here's what that looks like in the real world. Imagine you log into your bank account. You go up to the address bar, change one little number in the URL, hit enter, and boom, you're now looking at someone else's bank account. Yeah, it's that bad, it's shockingly common, and that's exactly why it's number one. All right, let's move on. The second way a fortress falls. Sometimes the problem isn't a crack that formed over time. Sometimes the flaw was in the blueprint from day one. These are dangers that were literally designed right into the system. So this group is all about those foundational mistakes. You've got security misconfiguration, which is kind of like building a giant secure door and then just leaving it unlocked with the password 123. And it also covers using bad building materials, using pre-built parts that you already know are weak. And that gets us into these big ideas of insecure design and software supply chain failures. And this is a really important distinction. Insecure design, number A06 on the list, isn't about a single coding bug. It's a much bigger problem. It's a failure to even think about security during the planning phase. It's like designing a whole fortress, but forgetting to think about where the watchtowers go or how high the walls need to be. It's proof that you can't just bolt on security at the end. It's got to be baked. And this leads to a truly modern nightmare, which is A03. Just picture it. You're building your fortress with bricks you bought from 100 different suppliers. Now, what happens if just one of those suppliers sold you a batch of crumbly, weak bricks? Well, now every single wall you built with those bricks is totally compromised. That is a software supply chain failure, and it's a huge deal today. Okay, on to our third and final category. Look, you can have the strongest fortress in the world, but it's completely useless if no one's actually watching the walls. This is all about failures of visibility, when you're basically blind and deaf while an attack is happening. And this really boils down to two main things. First, you're not keeping good records or logs of what's going on, and you're not raising an alarm when something weird happens. And second, the system freaks out when it hits an error and accidentally spills secrets. I call these the silent killers of cybersecurity because the bad guys can be in and out, and you might not know for weeks or even months. This one, A09, is just so critical. Think about it. If an intruder is sneaking around your fortress at night, but none of the guards bother to write it down or ring the alarm bell, did it even happen? Well, as far as you're concerned, no. And that's the danger. Attackers can just hang out for ages, completely undetected. It's simple. You can't stop an enemy you can't even see. Okay, so we've looked at cracks in the walls, flaws in the blueprint, and unwatched towers. So what does it all mean? What's the big takeaway here? If you remember just one thing from all of this, what should it be? It's this, right here. Security isn't a feature. It's not something you add on at the very end. You don't build a whole fortress and then go, how should we defend this thing? No way. Security has to be there from the very beginning. It's in the architect's mind with the first sketch, it's with the builders laying the first stone, and it's with the guards standing the first watch. It is a mindset, a process, not a product. And really, that leads me to the one last thought I want to leave you with. When you think about how complex our digital world is getting, is security a product you can ever actually finish, or is it just a process, a never-ending cycle of vigilance? Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.